Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to kick off this presentation on biodiversity and conservation. Today, we'll explore the richness of life on Earth and discuss how we can protect it. We'll cover the importance of biodiversity, the challenges it faces, and some effective conservation strategies. Let's get started. Thank you for being here. Now, let's take a moment to look at the overall structure of our presentation. We start with an understanding of biodiversity itself, then move on to why it is so important, especially in the context of India. We'll explore the patterns and levels of biodiversity and discuss both the threats it faces and the conservation approaches that can help protect it. We'll also cover global and national perspectives, including threatened and endangered species in India, and examine how biodiversity loss leads to species extinction. International conventions play a role too, guiding our efforts toward conservation. Throughout this presentation, I want you to see how all these pieces connect, how understanding the measurement of biodiversity helps us develop effective conservation strategies. Ultimately, preserving biodiversity is essential for maintaining healthy ecosystems, supporting livelihoods, and ensuring a sustainable future for our planet. And with that, I thank you for your attention. Let's talk about biodiversity. Biodiversity refers to the variety of life on Earth, encompassing all living organisms, from tiny microbes to large mammals and everything in between. It's a crucial component of our planet's health because each species plays a specific role in maintaining ecological balance. When we think about biodiversity, we're really thinking about the richness and variability of life in different ecosystems. This diversity is what makes ecosystems resilient, enabling them to adapt to changes and recover from disturbances. Highlighting this point is important because the health of our planet and the sustainability of human life are directly linked to biodiversity. Protecting it isn't just about saving cute animals or rare plants. It's about ensuring the stability of the entire web of life that supports us all. So, as we move through this presentation, keep in mind that biodiversity is at the core of many environmental challenges and solutions we'll explore. The word biodiversity comes from combining the Greek word bios, which means life, and the Latin word diversitas, meaning variety or difference. So, in essence, biodiversity generally refers to the variety of life on Earth. It's a term that captures the incredible richness and diversity of all living things. Interestingly, the term was coined by Edward Wilson, a renowned biologist. Biodiversity, or biological diversity, is really about the differences we see in nature. This includes the genetic differences among individuals within a species, which are essential for adaptation and evolution. It also encompasses the variety and richness of all plant and animal species, and this can be observed at different scales, locally, regionally, nationally, and even globally. And it's not just about individual species. Biodiversity also includes the different types of ecosystems, both terrestrial, like forests and grasslands, and aquatic, like rivers and oceans. All of these components are interconnected, forming a complex web of life within specific areas. Understanding biodiversity is crucial because it highlights how diverse and dynamic our natural world is. It reminds us that protecting this variety is vital for the health of our planet, for sustaining life, and for maintaining the balance within ecosystems. Why biodiversity is important. 2. Let's take a moment to really understand why biodiversity matters so much. Biodiversity refers to the variety of life on Earth, from the tiniest insects to the largest mammals, and everything in between. This incredible variety is not just about having a lot of different species. It's about the balance and resilience of ecosystems. When biodiversity is high, ecosystems tend to be healthier and more productive. They can better withstand stresses like climate change, diseases, and habitat loss. Think of it like a diversified investment portfolio. The more varied, the more protected you are. This diversity also supports essential services we rely on, such as clean water, air purification, and pollination of crops. In essence, protecting biodiversity isn't just about saving animals and plants. It's about safeguarding the very foundation of life that sustains us all. And as we continue this presentation, remember that understanding and valuing biodiversity is key to creating sustainable solutions for our planet's future. Maintaining a wide diversity of species in each ecosystem is absolutely essential to preserve the web of life that supports all living things. As Edward O. Wilson, a renowned biologist from Harvard and often called the father of biodiversity, pointed out in his 1992 bestseller, The Diversity of Life, it is reckless to assume that we can keep diminishing biodiversity without risking our own future. All plant, animal, and insect species interact and depend on each other in countless ways, whether it's providing food, shelter, oxygen, or enriching the soil. Everything that lives within an ecosystem is interconnected, forming a complex web that sustains life on Earth, and that includes humans. Every species, every form of vegetation, plays a vital role in the circle of life. Recognizing this interconnectedness is crucial, not just for the health of ecosystems, but for the well-being of humanity as well. Biodiversity isn't just a nice-to-have, it's the foundation of our survival and our future. Now, let's take a closer look at the levels of biodiversity. When we talk about biodiversity, we're really referring to the variety of life at different scales. First, there's genetic diversity, which is the variety of genes within a species. This diversity is crucial because it helps populations adapt to changing environments and resist diseases. Then, we have species diversity, which is the variety of different species within a specific area. This level really highlights the richness of life forms around us. Finally, there's ecosystem diversity, which involves the different types of ecosystems, like forests, grasslands, and wetlands, and the complex interactions within them. Recognizing these different levels helps us understand the full picture of biological diversity and its importance for the health of our planet. It also underscores why protecting biodiversity at all these levels is essential for maintaining resilient and functioning ecosystems, which ultimately supports all life, including ours. Did you know that in India alone, there are over 50,000 genetically distinct strains of rice? That's incredible diversity within a single crop. And when it comes to fruits, we have around 1,000 different varieties of mango. This highlights just how rich and varied our agricultural biodiversity is. This kind of variation, known as genetic diversity, is essential because it allows species to adapt to different environmental conditions. For example, some rice strains might be more resistant to drought, while others might thrive in wetter conditions. This diversity ensures that if conditions change or if pests and diseases emerge, there's a higher chance that some varieties will withstand those challenges. It's also important to remember that this diversity helps avoid problems like inbreeding and disease epidemics, which can severely impact crop yields. So, maintaining genetic biodiversity isn't just about preserving variety for its own sake. It's a vital strategy for food security and resilience. Overall, these examples show how vital genetic diversity is to our food systems, especially in a country as agriculturally rich as India. It's a cornerstone of sustainable agriculture and a safeguard for future generations. Let's explore some key concepts related to species biodiversity. First, we have species, which are basically a particular type of organism. Members of the same species share certain characteristics and can breed with each other to produce fertile offspring. Next, species richness refers to the number of different species found in a habitat. It's a straightforward count, how many species are present. Then, we move on to species diversity, which is a bit more nuanced. It not only considers how many species are there, but also how evenly the individuals are distributed among those species. This is called evenness or relative abundance. If one species dominates while others are scarce, the diversity is lower. But if species are present in similar numbers, the diversity is higher. For example, the Western Ghats has a greater amphibian diversity compared to the Eastern Ghats, meaning it hosts a wider variety of amphibian species. All of these aspects, species richness, diversity, and evenness are crucial for understanding the variety of life in a habitat, which is a core part of biodiversity. Recognizing these differences helps us appreciate the complexity and richness of ecosystems worldwide. When we talk about a stable community, one of the key features is its resistance to seasonal disturbances. This means it can withstand changes like weather shifts or seasonal variations without losing its balance. It also resists invasion by alien species, which is crucial because invasive species can often disrupt local ecosystems. Additionally, a stable community shouldn't show too much variation over time. For example, productivity, or how much the community produces, should stay relatively consistent from year to year. If there's too much fluctuation, it indicates instability. Most importantly, communities with a greater number of species tend to be more stable than those with fewer species. This highlights the importance of species diversity. When you have a rich variety of species, the ecosystem is more resilient and better equipped to handle challenges. In essence, maintaining high species diversity supports ecosystem stability, making it more resistant to disturbances and better at sustaining productivity over time. This ties back to our overall theme that biodiversity is fundamental for healthy, resilient ecosystems. Let's take a closer look at landscape diversity, habitat diversity, and community diversity. These are all important aspects of ecosystem biodiversity, which refers to the variety of different habitats found in a particular area. This includes not just the variety of species, but also the diversity above the species level. Biologists have approached this concept in various ways, and one key perspective is ecological biodiversity. Ecological biodiversity focuses on the different types of habitats and the complex interactions within them. Understanding this helps us see how diverse ecosystems function and why maintaining this variety is crucial for health and resilience. So, as we explore ecosystem biodiversity, keep in mind that it's about more than just individual species. It's about the rich tapestry of habitats and communities that make up our natural world. Let's take a closer look at global biodiversity. As we explore this topic, it's important to understand that biodiversity refers to the variety of life forms on our planet, from tiny microorganisms to massive mammals. This diversity is crucial because it underpins the health of ecosystems and provides resources and services we rely on daily. However, despite its importance, biodiversity is under significant threat due to human activities like deforestation, pollution, climate change, and overfishing. These pressures are causing many species to decline or even go extinct at an alarming rate. Understanding the state of global biodiversity helps us recognize the urgent need for conservation and sustainable practices. Protecting biodiversity isn't just about saving individual species. It's about maintaining the balance of entire ecosystems, which ultimately supports human well-being and the health of our planet. So, as we continue through this presentation, keep in mind that preserving biodiversity is a fundamental part of addressing broader environmental challenges and achieving long-term sustainability. According to IUCN from 2004, the number of plant and animal species that have been described so far is about 1.5 million. However, experts estimate that the total number of species on Earth, including those we haven't yet discovered or described, is around 7 million. When we look at this diversity, more than 70% of all recorded species are animals, which shows how rich and varied animal life is. Plants make up about 22% of the species we know. Interestingly, insects are the most species-rich group within the animal kingdom, accounting for about 70% of all animal species. This highlights just how incredible and vast global biodiversity really is, and it emphasizes the importance of protecting this incredible variety of life on our planet as we continue our discussion on conservation and sustainability. India's biodiversity is truly remarkable and one of the richest in the world. It hosts a vast array of flora and fauna, thanks to its diverse climates and ecosystems. From the Himalayan mountains to the coastal regions, Each habitat supports unique species. We see tropical rainforests, deserts, wetlands, and mountain ranges all within the country's borders. This incredible variety makes India a vital part of global biodiversity. Protecting this richness is essential not just for India, but for the health of our planet as a whole. It highlights the importance of conservation efforts and sustainable practices to ensure these species and habitats thrive for future generations. India's biodiversity is incredibly rich and diverse, encompassing not only wild relatives of our agricultural crops and domesticated animals, but also a vast array of other species. Currently, there are over 91,000 documented animal species, including 2,500 protista, around 12,500 general invertebrates, and nearly 70,000 arthropods. In addition to that, we have close to 5,000 vertebrate species and about 45,500 plant species. Microbial species also make up a significant part, with around 5,650 documented varieties. These species are spread across India's 10 biogeographic regions, highlighting the country's ecological diversity. India has recognized the importance of protecting this rich biodiversity through its National Wildlife Action Plan. The goal is to have at least 10% of the country's land area under protected area coverage. Currently, approximately 4.79% of India's total geographic area is protected through a network that includes 99 national parks, 513 wildlife sanctuaries, 43 conservation reserves, 4 community reserves, and 3 biodiversity heritage sites. The concept of protected areas in India is not new. As far back as 252 BC, Emperor Ashoka established protected areas for various species and forests through a formal proclamation. And of course, India's first national park, Jim Corbett National Park, established in 1936, covering 325 square kilometers, was a pioneering effort, not only in India but also globally, as it was the third national park in the world. Another important aspect of India's biodiversity conservation is the role of its diverse native, tribal, and ethnic groups. Their traditional knowledge and practices have significantly contributed to conserving and diversifying our natural heritage. India is home to over 550 tribal communities, comprising 227 ethnic groups, living across thousands of forested villages. This cultural connection to nature underscores our long-standing tradition of conservation. India's forests are also incredibly diverse, with 16 major types and 251 subtypes. Indigenous medicine systems rely heavily on native plants. Nearly 6,500 species are used for both human and animal healthcare, showing the deep integration of biodiversity into our cultural fabric. India is one of the world's 17 megadiverse countries, which means we harbor a high level of endemism. We have 4 of the 34 global biodiversity hotspots, and approximately 5,150 plant species and 1,837 animal species are endemic to our country, meaning they are found nowhere else in the world. Our country's 10 biogeographic zones are a testament to this ecological diversity. They include alpine forests, grasslands, wetlands, coastal and marine ecosystems, and deserts. This variety of habitats supports a wide range of species and ecological processes. In summary, India's rich heritage of biodiversity is a vital part of our national identity. Despite occupying only about 2.4% of the world's land area, India accounts for around 7 to 8% of the world's known plant and animal species. This underscores not only our natural wealth, but also our responsibility to conserve and sustainably manage these invaluable resources for future generations. Now, let's talk about the measurement of biodiversity. This is a crucial aspect because understanding how we quantify biodiversity helps us assess the health and stability of ecosystems. There are several key points to consider here. First, biodiversity isn't just about counting species. It's about understanding the variety, abundance, and distribution of organisms within a community. We use different metrics to measure it, such as species richness, which is simply the number of species in an area, and evenness, which looks at how evenly individuals are distributed among those species. Combining these gives us indices like the Shannon or Simpson Index, which provide a more comprehensive picture of biodiversity. It's also important to recognize that measuring biodiversity helps us track changes over time, identify areas that need conservation, and evaluate the impact of human activities. This connects directly to the overall theme of our presentation, highlighting the importance of preserving biodiversity for ecological stability and resilience. So, understanding these measurement tools allows us to make informed decisions to protect our natural world effectively. Let's take a closer look at how we measure biodiversity. There are three main ways to do this, each focusing on different scales and comparisons. First, we have alpha biodiversity, which refers to the number of species found in a specific area. This is essentially local diversity, and it helps us understand the richness within a particular habitat. Next, there's beta biodiversity, which compares the biodiversity between two different habitats. Think of it as measuring how similar or different two areas are in terms of their species composition. It gives us insight into habitat variability and species turnover. Finally, we have gamma biodiversity, which measures the overall biodiversity across a large-scale land or region. This broad perspective helps us understand the total variety of species in extensive landscapes or ecosystems. Together, these three measures provide a comprehensive view of biodiversity, from local species richness to broader regional differences. Understanding these distinctions is crucial as we work to conserve and manage biodiversity effectively. Let's take a closer look at the patterns of biodiversity. As you can see, biodiversity isn't evenly distributed across the planet. Some areas are teeming with life, while others have much less. These patterns are influenced by various factors like climate, geography, and evolutionary history. For example, tropical rainforests are incredibly rich in species, whereas deserts tend to have fewer. Understanding these patterns helps us see where conservation efforts are most needed. It also highlights the importance of protecting diverse habitats to maintain the overall health of our planet's ecosystems. So, recognizing these patterns is key to understanding how life is distributed and how we can better preserve it. Biodiversity, as we've seen, isn't evenly spread across the globe. Instead, it shows an uneven distribution, which is influenced by a couple of key factors. These patterns of biodiversity are shaped by various environmental and geographical elements. Understanding these patterns helps us grasp why some regions are teeming with life, while others are relatively less diverse. So, when we look at where different species are found, it's important to consider these underlying factors that create this uneven distribution. This concept ties back to the overall theme of how complex and dynamic our natural world is, and how understanding these patterns can guide us in conservation efforts. India, with much of its land area in the tropical latitudes, is home to more than 1,200 species of birds. It's fascinating to see how the tropical regions tend to support such incredible biodiversity. For comparison, Colombia, which is also near the equator, has nearly 1,400 species of birds, highlighting just how rich tropical ecosystems can be. On the other hand, if we look at places farther from the equator, like New York at 41 degrees north, it has only about 105 bird species. Greenland, at 71 degrees north, has even fewer, around 56 species. These differences are quite significant and illustrate a broader trend in biodiversity distribution. There are a few exceptions to this pattern, but generally, tropical regions, those within the latitudinal range of 23.5 degrees north to 23.5 degrees south, tend to harbor more species than temperate or polar areas. In fact, overall, species diversity tends to decrease as we move away from the equator toward the poles. This is what we call the latitudinal gradient, a key concept in understanding biodiversity patterns across the globe. So, in summary, the closer you are to the equator, the richer the biodiversity, especially for birds, which is a critical point to remember in our broader discussion of ecological diversity. Let's talk about why the tropics tend to have higher biological diversity. First, more solar energy is available there, which means higher productivity. This abundance of energy supports a wider variety of life forms and creates more opportunities for different species to thrive. Next, tropical environments are less seasonal compared to temperate regions. This stability allows species to specialize in particular niches, leading to a greater overall diversity. When conditions remain relatively constant over time, it encourages more specialized adaptations and a richer variety of species. In contrast, temperate regions have experienced frequent glaciations throughout history. These ice ages wiped out many species, making it harder for diversity to accumulate. On the other hand, tropical latitudes have remained relatively undisturbed for millions of years, providing a stable environment for species to evolve and diversify over long periods. Ecologists and evolutionary biologists have proposed several hypotheses to explain this pattern. Overall, the combination of consistent climate, stable conditions, and abundant energy in the tropics creates the perfect setting for higher biological diversity to flourish. Let's take a closer look at the species-area relationship. On this slide, we've defined some key terms. C represents the y-intercept, A is the area, and Z is the slope of the line, which is also known as the regression coefficient. S stands for species richness, or the number of species in a given area. Now, the main equation here is log S equals log C plus Z times log A. This equation shows that when we plot these variables on a logarithmic scale, the relationship between species richness and area appears as a straight line. The slope of that line, Z, tells us how quickly species richness increases as area expands. Historically, this idea dates back to Alexander von Humboldt, a pioneering German naturalist and explorer. He observed that as you explore larger regions, the number of species tends to increase, but only up to a certain point. This means there's a limit to how many species you can find, regardless of how much more area you explore. Interestingly, when we look at a wide variety of taxa, the relationship between species richness and area often forms what's called a rectangular hyperbola. This shape captures the idea that species richness increases rapidly at first, then levels off as the area continues to grow. Overall, this relationship helps us understand biodiversity patterns across different landscapes and is fundamental for studies in ecology and conservation. Now, let's talk about the loss of biodiversity, which is a critical issue we face today. Biodiversity refers to the variety of life on Earth, the different species, ecosystems, and genetic diversity that all work together to keep our planet healthy. Unfortunately, this diversity is declining at an alarming rate. Human activities like deforestation, pollution, climate change, and overexploitation of resources are the main drivers behind this loss. When we lose species, we not only diminish natural beauty, but we also disrupt essential ecological functions such as pollination, water purification, and soil fertility. This decline threatens the resilience of ecosystems, making them more vulnerable to other stresses and less capable of providing the services we rely on. Ultimately, the loss of biodiversity impacts us all. It affects food security, health, and the stability of our environment. Recognizing the importance of biodiversity is key to understanding the broader theme of sustainability and our responsibility to protect the planet for future generations. As we look at this slide, it's clear that human activities have had a significant impact on biological resources worldwide. The decline has been rapid and concerning. For example, when humans colonized the tropical Pacific Islands, it led to the extinction of over 2,000 native bird species. That's a stark reminder of how our actions can drastically alter ecosystems. Globally, more than 15,500 species are now facing the threat of extinction. If we break it down, around 12% of bird species are at risk, along with 23% of mammals, 32% of amphibians, and 31% of gymnosperms. These numbers highlight the widespread nature of biodiversity loss across different groups of organisms. It's important to remember that this loss of biodiversity isn't just about individual species. It impacts entire ecosystems, which in turn affects human well-being. This slide underscores the urgent need for us to understand and address the factors driving these declines, especially as part of the broader effort to preserve our planet's health. Let's take a closer look at the effects of biodiversity loss. One of the key impacts is increased variability in certain ecosystem processes. For example, plant productivity, water use, and even pest and disease cycles can become more unpredictable. This variability can make it harder for ecosystems to function smoothly and reliably. Additionally, we see a lowered resistance to environmental perturbations, such as droughts. When biodiversity declines, ecosystems become less resilient and more vulnerable to these kinds of stresses. All of these changes can lead to a decline in plant production, which directly affects the availability of food and habitat for many species, including humans. So, in essence, the loss of biodiversity doesn't just reduce the number of species. It fundamentally alters how ecosystems operate, making them more fragile and less able to cope with environmental challenges. This highlights the importance of maintaining biodiversity for the health and stability of our ecosystems overall. Now, let's take a closer look at the major mass extinctions in Earth's history, often referred to as the Big Five. First, we have the End Cretaceous, also known as the Cretaceous Tertiary extinction, which famously led to the demise of the dinosaurs. Then, there's the End Triassic, marking the transition from the Triassic to the Jurassic period, where many marine and terrestrial species disappeared. Moving further back, we encounter the End Permian, or Permian-Triassic extinction, often called the Great Dying, because it was the most severe, wiping out a huge percentage of Earth's species. We also have the Late Devonian extinction, which happened in multiple pulses and affected marine life significantly. Lastly, the End Ordovician, which was driven by a sudden ice age, caused a massive loss of life, especially among marine organisms. These 5 events are considered the most significant in shaping the course of life on Earth. Understanding these mass extinctions helps us see how natural calamities, whether climate shifts, volcanic activity, or asteroid impacts, have repeatedly reset the biological stage. They remind us of the fragile balance of life and highlight the importance of studying Earth's history to better grasp our present and future. The 6th extinction is actually happening right now, and it's quite different from the previous mass extinctions in Earth's history. What's particularly alarming is that the current rates of species extinction are estimated to be between 100 and even 1,000 times faster than what we've seen in pre-human times. And the key driver behind this acceleration: human activities. Whether it's habitat destruction, pollution, climate change, or overhunting, we are the main cause. Ecologists are warning us that if these trends continue unchecked, we could see nearly half of all species on Earth wiped out within the next 100 years. This isn't just about losing animals or plants. It's about the destabilization of ecosystems that support all life, including ours. It's a stark reminder of the urgent need for action to change our impact and protect the biodiversity that sustains us all. Now, let's take a closer look at the 4 major causes of biodiversity loss. First, we have co-extinction, which occurs when the extinction of one species leads to the loss of others that depend on it. This interconnectedness means that losing one species can trigger a chain reaction affecting many others. Next is the impact of alien species, or invasive species, which are non-native to an ecosystem. These species often outcompete, prey on, or bring diseases to native species, disrupting the natural balance. Overexploitation is another major factor. Think overfishing, hunting, or harvesting resources faster than they can naturally recover. This unsustainable use puts immense pressure on populations and ecosystems. Lastly, habitat loss, which is perhaps the most visible cause, results from deforestation, urbanization, and agriculture. When habitats are destroyed or fragmented, species lose their homes and food sources, making survival increasingly difficult. Together, these 4 factors are driving significant declines in biodiversity worldwide and highlight the urgent need for conservation efforts. Habitat destruction is actually the main cause behind the extinction of many species. If you think about the tropical rainforests, they initially covered about 14% of the land on Earth, but today, that number has dropped to just 6%. That's a huge loss. The Amazon rainforest, for example, is often called the lungs of the planet because of how vital it is for producing oxygen and supporting biodiversity. When large habitats like these get broken into smaller fragments because of human activities, it creates serious problems for wildlife. Some animals find it impossible to survive in these fragmented habitats, which puts their entire populations at risk. Habitat loss happens when ecosystems are destroyed due to human actions like urbanization, intensive farming, deforestation, or mining. Basically, whenever we clear land for development or resource extraction, we're disrupting natural habitats. This process, called habitat fragmentation, occurs when continuous areas of vegetation are broken up into smaller patches. This fragmentation makes it harder for animals to find food, mates, or migrate, which can lead to a decline in biodiversity overall. So, in essence, habitat loss and fragmentation are major drivers behind the ongoing loss of biodiversity, threatening the health and stability of our planet's ecosystems. Overexploitation is a critical issue we need to understand. It involves harvesting renewable resources, like fish, plants, or animals, at a rate faster than they can naturally recover. When this happens, it can cause significant degradation of ecosystems and even lead to the extinction of species. For example, the Steller's sea cow was hunted to extinction in the 18th century because it was so heavily exploited. Similarly, the passenger pigeon was once incredibly numerous, but overhunting and habitat loss drove it to extinction by the early 20th century. This concept ties directly into our broader theme of biodiversity loss. When we overexploit resources, we're not just losing individual species, we're disrupting entire ecosystems, which can have ripple effects throughout the environment. Recognizing the impact of overexploitation helps us understand how human activities contribute to the decline of biodiversity and why sustainable practices are so vital for preserving our natural world. Let's take a closer look at some examples of alien weeds, such as carrot grass, also known as parthenium, along with lantana and water hyacinth or eichhornia. These plants are not native to the areas where they now thrive, and their presence often causes significant ecological problems. When we talk about alien species, it's important to understand how their introduction can disrupt natural habitats. For instance, the introduction of the Nile perch into Lake Victoria is a classic example. This fish was introduced with the aim of boosting fisheries, but it had devastating consequences. Over time, more than 200 species of indigenous cichlid fish went extinct because of this invasion. Similarly, in India, the illegal introduction of the African catfish, known scientifically as Clarias garipinus, poses a serious threat to native catfish populations. These invasive species often outcompete or predate upon indigenous species, leading to a decline in native biodiversity. This is a clear example of how the invasion of alien species in natural habitats can cause a significant decline in native species. It highlights the importance of managing and controlling alien species to preserve biodiversity and maintain healthy ecosystems. When one organism goes extinct, it can have a ripple effect on other species that depend on it. This is what we call co-extinction. For example, imagine a host fish species that becomes extinct. All the parasites that are exclusively found on that particular fish will likely become extinct too. This interconnectedness highlights how tightly linked biodiversity is. When a single species disappears, it doesn't just affect itself. It can lead to the loss of other species as well. This is a key point in understanding biodiversity loss because it shows how extinction isn't always an isolated event. It's often part of a larger chain reaction impacting entire ecosystems. Recognizing these relationships helps us see why protecting biodiversity is so crucial for maintaining ecological balance. Conservation of biodiversity is truly vital for maintaining the health of our planet. When we talk about conserving biodiversity, we're referring to protecting the variety of life forms, from tiny insects to large mammals and their habitats. It's about ensuring that ecosystems remain resilient and able to provide essential services like clean water, air, and fertile soil. One key point is that biodiversity isn't just about the animals and plants we see. It also includes the genetic diversity within species, which helps populations adapt to changing environments. Protecting this diversity is crucial for long-term sustainability. Another important aspect is understanding the threats that biodiversity faces, such as habitat destruction, pollution, climate change, and overexploitation. Addressing these threats requires a collective effort involving governments, communities, scientists, and individuals like you and me. Effective conservation strategies include establishing protected areas, restoring degraded ecosystems, and promoting sustainable practices. Education also plays a critical role in fostering awareness and encouraging responsible behavior toward our natural resources. Ultimately, conserving biodiversity isn't just about saving individual species. It's about preserving the intricate web of life that sustains us all. When we invest in conservation, we're safeguarding the future of our planet for generations to come. When we look at the economic benefits that come from nature, we see a wide range of resources that are essential to our daily lives. For example, medicines are often derived from plants and natural compounds, highlighting the importance of biodiversity for healthcare. Fiber, another vital resource, is used in making textiles and clothing, connecting directly to our industries and economies. Construction materials like wood and natural minerals are fundamental to building infrastructure and homes. Firewood remains a crucial energy source in many regions, especially where alternatives are limited. We also benefit from industrial products, such as dyes and perfumes, which originate from natural sources and add value to our markets. Food is another major benefit. Cereals, pulses, and fruits are staples that sustain populations and support agricultural economies. What's important to remember is that these resources, while seemingly simple, have a narrowly utilitarian value. They serve specific, practical purposes that support our livelihoods. Recognizing these benefits emphasizes how intertwined our economies are with nature and underscores the importance of conserving these natural resources for sustainable development. Now, let's take a look at some of the vital ecosystem services that support life on Earth. First, we have pollination of plants through pollinators like bees, birds, and bats. These creatures play a crucial role in helping plants reproduce, which in turn supports food production and biodiversity. Without them, many crops and wild plants would struggle to thrive. Next, I want to highlight the aesthetic pleasures we experience when walking through thick woods or watching spring flowers bloom. These natural sights not only bring joy and relaxation, but also remind us of the beauty and importance of healthy ecosystems. Moving on, did you know that the Amazon forest produces about 20% of the total oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere? That's a staggering contribution, emphasizing how vital tropical forests are for maintaining the balance of our planet's air quality. Finally, various ecosystem services are broadly utilitarian, meaning they provide tangible benefits to us, whether it's clean air, water, or food. Recognizing and valuing these services helps us appreciate the interconnectedness of nature and underscores the importance of conserving these ecosystems for our future well-being. There are millions of plants, animals, and microbes on this earth with whom we share our environment. Each of these species has some intrinsic value, meaning they are valuable in their own right. It's not just about what they can do for us, but recognizing that they have a right to exist. Because of this, it becomes our moral duty to take care of all living creatures. We need to act responsibly and ethically to protect them. By doing so, we also ensure that we pass on our biological legacy in good order to future generations. This idea ties into our overall theme of sustainability and our role as stewards of the planet. It's about respecting life in all its forms and understanding that our actions have a profound impact on the delicate web of life we are part of. Let's now take a look at the different approaches to biodiversity conservation. There are several strategies that we can use to protect our planet's rich variety of life. Some focus on protecting specific species that are at risk, while others aim to preserve entire ecosystems. In situ conservation is one key approach, which means protecting species in their natural habitats. This is often the most effective way to ensure the survival of ecosystems as they are, supporting the delicate balance of nature. Ex situ conservation, on the other hand, involves protecting species outside their natural environments, like in zoos, botanical gardens, or seed banks. This can be crucial for species that are critically endangered and need a safety net. Another important strategy is habitat restoration, where we work to repair and restore damaged ecosystems. This helps bring back biodiversity and ensures that habitats remain functional and resilient. Finally, policy and community involvement are vital. Creating laws and engaging local communities ensures that conservation efforts are sustainable and inclusive, making sure everyone has a role to play. Connecting all these approaches, it's clear that a combination of strategies is often necessary to effectively conserve biodiversity. By understanding and applying these various methods, we can better address the challenges facing our natural world and work toward a healthier, more sustainable future. Conservation of biodiversity is achieved through two main methods. These approaches are essential for maintaining the variety of life on Earth and ensuring the health of our ecosystems. The first approach focuses on protecting natural habitats and species directly. This includes establishing protected areas like national parks and wildlife reserves, which serve as safe havens for plants and animals. The second approach involves sustainable use and management of resources. This means using natural resources in a way that doesn't deplete them or harm the environment, ensuring that biodiversity can thrive long-term. Together, these methods form a comprehensive strategy for conserving biodiversity, aligning with our overall goal of balancing human needs with the health of our planet. Today, I want to talk about national parks, sanctuaries, and biosphere reserves. These are key examples of in situ conservation, which means conserving wildlife directly in their natural habitats. This approach focuses on protecting entire ecosystems and maintaining biodiversity at all levels. When we establish national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, we're essentially creating safe spaces for plants and animals to thrive without human interference. Biosphere reserves go a step further by not only protecting ecosystems, but also promoting sustainable use of resources. This method is fundamental because it preserves the natural environment as it exists, ensuring that species can continue to evolve and adapt naturally. Overall, these conservation strategies are crucial for maintaining the health of our planet's ecosystems and safeguarding biodiversity for future generations. Let's talk about some important tools in conservation outside of animals' natural habitats, like zoos, botanical gardens, and seed banks. These are all examples of ex situ conservation, which means protecting species away from their natural environment. The goal here is to safeguard endangered or threatened species that need urgent help to prevent extinction. By maintaining populations in controlled settings, we can better study them, ensure their survival, and even potentially reintroduce them into the wild later on. These efforts complement in situ conservation, which focuses on protecting species in their natural habitats. Together, these strategies form a comprehensive approach to biodiversity preservation. Let's turn our attention to biodiversity loss and species extinction. This is a critical aspect of our environmental challenges today. As many of you know, biodiversity refers to the variety of life on Earth, different species, ecosystems, and genetic diversity. Unfortunately, we're witnessing a rapid decline in this diversity. Species are going extinct at rates much faster than natural, which has serious consequences for ecosystems and human well-being alike. These extinctions aren't just about losing individual species. They disrupt entire ecological networks, affecting everything from food systems to climate regulation. This slide highlights how urgent it is to address the drivers of biodiversity loss, like habitat destruction, pollution, climate change, and overexploitation. Connecting this to our overall theme, protecting biodiversity is essential not only for nature's health, but also for our own survival and the sustainability of our future. Let's take a moment to look at some of the key organizations involved in wildlife conservation. The International Biological Program, or IBP, was one of the early efforts to study and preserve biodiversity. Then, there's the World Wildlife Fund for Nature, or WWF, which is perhaps one of the most well-known conservation groups worldwide. The IUCN, or International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, plays a crucial role in maintaining records of threatened species through its Red Data Book. This book is essential because it helps us understand which species are at risk of extinction. We also have the United Nations Development Program, or UNDP, which integrates conservation into broader development goals. The Indian Board for Wildlife, IBWL, focuses specifically on wildlife issues within India. The Man and Biodiversity Program, or MAB, emphasizes the relationship between humans and biodiversity, recognizing that our actions directly impact the natural world. All these organizations work together to address one of the most pressing issues we face today: threatened species. Threatened species are those whose populations are decreasing, and if we don't intervene, they are likely to decline even further in the future. This decline in species populations is a major component of biodiversity loss and species extinction, which threaten the health of ecosystems and, ultimately, our own well-being. It's important to understand that protecting these species isn't just about saving individual animals or plants. It's about maintaining the delicate balance of life on Earth, which supports us all. Let's take a closer look at the major categories of threatened species. First, we have species likely to enter the endangered category, such as the wild goat, wild yak, barasingha, and wild ass. These species are on the brink and could become endangered if conservation efforts aren't strengthened. Next, there are vulnerable species. These are species that have already faced significant threats and are at risk of becoming endangered if conditions worsen. Moving on, extinct species are those that have completely disappeared from the Earth. An example would be species we've lost forever, which highlights the importance of protecting those still around. Then we have rare species. These species have small populations but haven't yet been classified as endangered or vulnerable. They require attention to prevent further decline. Another critical category is endangered species. These are species whose populations have drastically reduced, and they are at immediate risk of extinction. Examples include the Asiatic lion, one-horned rhinoceros, lion-tailed macaque, and Nilgiri tahr. Finally, there's extirpation, which refers to the disappearance of a particular population in a specific area, but not the entire species globally. This distinction is important because it shows that a species might be wiped out in one region but still survive elsewhere. Understanding these categories helps us grasp the urgency and scope of conservation efforts needed to protect our planet's biodiversity. Let's look at some traditionally conserved areas that are rich in natural features. These are places where human activities and hunting are completely banned to preserve their unique ecosystems. Examples include the Kodachadri Hills at Kolar and the Balagiri Ranganatha Hills. These areas are crucial for biodiversity conservation and often hold cultural or spiritual significance. Moving on, we have what are called sacred landscapes. These are patches of forests that are traditionally conserved because they are dedicated to local deities. Such areas include Devara Kadu, Nagarabana, Bhuthastana, and Divabana. These landscapes are protected not just for their ecological value, but also for their cultural and spiritual importance to local communities. Then there are sacred groves, which are specific patches of forest preserved based on religious beliefs. These groves often contain species of plants and animals that are considered sacred. Common examples include cows, snakes, monkeys, elephants, and plants like chalassi, neem, and banyan trees. These species and areas are protected because of their religious and cultural significance. So, when we talk about sacred species and sacred groves, we're really highlighting how cultural practices and religious beliefs play a vital role in conserving biodiversity. These traditions help maintain ecological balance and protect species that might otherwise be at risk. This interconnectedness between culture and conservation is a powerful example of sustainable environmental stewardship. Let's take a closer look at threatened and endangered species in India. As we know, India is incredibly rich in biodiversity, but many species are facing serious risks. On this slide, you'll see that there are about 12 key species that are classified as threatened or endangered. These include iconic animals like the Bengal tiger, the Indian rhinoceros, and the Asian elephant. The key point here is that these species are at risk primarily because of habitat loss, poaching, and human-wildlife conflict. Protecting them is crucial, not just for maintaining biodiversity, but also for preserving ecological balance. This connects to our overall theme of conservation and sustainable development. If we fail to protect these species, we risk losing vital parts of our natural heritage. So, understanding which species are threatened helps us prioritize our conservation efforts and ensure these magnificent creatures continue to thrive in India's diverse ecosystems. Today, I want to talk about threatened and endangered species in India. As we explore this topic, it's important to understand that India is incredibly rich in biodiversity, but many species face threats to their survival. These threats come from various human activities like deforestation, habitat destruction, pollution, and poaching. Recognizing which species are endangered helps us prioritize conservation efforts. Some of these species are on the brink of extinction, and their loss would mean a significant blow to our natural heritage. By highlighting these species, we emphasize the urgent need for sustainable practices and protection measures. This connects directly to our overall theme of environmental conservation, reminding us that safeguarding our natural world requires collective effort and awareness. Let's take a closer look at biodiversity depletion. This is a critical issue because it refers to the loss of variety and variability of life on Earth. When we talk about biodiversity, we're referring to the incredible range of species, ecosystems, and genetic differences that make our planet so resilient and vibrant. Unfortunately, human activities like deforestation, pollution, climate change, and overexploitation are accelerating the rate at which these species disappear. This depletion not only affects individual species, but also disrupts entire ecosystems, weakening their ability to provide essential services like clean water, air, and food. The key point here is that biodiversity is fundamental to the health of our planet and our own well-being. As part of this overall presentation, understanding biodiversity depletion underscores the urgent need for sustainable practices and conservation efforts to preserve this natural wealth for future generations. Let's talk about biodiversity depletion, which is essentially the reduction or loss of plants and animals in our ecosystems. This process can happen for a couple of reasons. Sometimes, natural disasters like hurricanes, floods, or wildfires can cause sudden and significant impacts on local biodiversity. But unfortunately, human activities are also a major driver of this depletion. Activities such as deforestation, pollution, overhunting, and urban expansion are accelerating the loss of species at an alarming rate. Understanding this concept is crucial because it highlights how both nature and human actions contribute to the overall health of our planet's biodiversity, which is vital for maintaining ecological balance and sustainability. So, in this slide, we're looking at the anthropocentric causes of biodiversity depletion, which basically means the human activities that are driving the loss of our natural diversity. Let's start with soil erosion. This happens when human actions like deforestation and improper land use remove the protective vegetation cover, making the soil vulnerable to being washed or blown away. Next, we have deforestation itself, which is a major factor because cutting down forests destroys habitats and reduces the number of species that can survive there. Moving on, desertification is another critical issue. This is when land turns into desert-like conditions, often due to overgrazing, drought, and unsustainable farming practices. Then there's the acidification of soil and water, which results from pollution and industrial activities. This process makes the environment hostile for many organisms. Expansion of agriculture also plays a role. Sometimes, to meet growing food demands, land is converted rapidly, often at the expense of native ecosystems. Mining activity is another cause. Excavation and resource extraction disturb the land and can introduce pollutants, impacting biodiversity. Pollution itself, whether air, water, or soil pollution, directly harms many species and disrupts ecosystems. Finally, urbanization is a significant driver. Sprawling cities and infrastructure replace natural habitats, fragmenting ecosystems and reducing biodiversity. All of these activities are interconnected and contribute to the overall decline in biodiversity, highlighting how human actions, when not managed sustainably, can have serious consequences for our planet's health. All right, let's talk about deforestation. Essentially, it refers to the process where forests are destroyed, often to make way for agriculture, industrial activities, or even domestic use. And this destruction has several serious consequences. First, it leads to the loss of habitat for countless species, which threatens biodiversity. It also causes soil erosion, making the land less fertile and more prone to desertification. Plus, deforestation contributes to global warming because trees play a crucial role in absorbing carbon dioxide. So, when we cut down forests, we're not just losing trees, we're impacting the entire balance of our ecosystems. Understanding these effects helps us see why protecting forests is so vital for our planet's health and sustainability. Let's talk about acidification, which refers to the decrease in pH value of soil and water. This happens mainly because of acid rain and the use of high chemical fertilizers. When the pH drops, it creates more acidic conditions in these environments. Most soil microbes, insects, plants, and aquatic animals are actually quite sensitive to these changes. As conditions become more acidic, many of these organisms struggle to survive, which leads to a reduction in biodiversity. This is a significant concern because it impacts the health of ecosystems and their ability to function properly. So, understanding acidification helps us see how human activities directly influence environmental stability and biodiversity. Mining activity involves extracting non-renewable geological materials from the earth. These resources are finite, so once they're taken out, they can't be replenished naturally on a human timescale. This process often leads to several environmental impacts. For example, resource exploitation can deplete valuable minerals and metals that we rely on for various industries. It also typically results in deforestation, as large areas of forest are cleared to access deposits underground. Pollution is another significant issue, with mining operations often releasing harmful chemicals and sediments into nearby air and water sources. Soil erosion is also a major concern because removing vegetation cover destabilizes the land, making it more prone to erosion and degradation. All these activities contribute to the depletion of biodiversity, as habitats are destroyed or fragmented, threatening local flora and fauna. Understanding these impacts highlights the importance of managing mining activity responsibly, especially as we seek sustainable solutions that balance our resource needs with environmental preservation. Let's now turn our attention to conservation approaches. On this slide, we'll explore some of the key strategies used to protect and sustain our natural resources. First, it's important to recognize that conservation isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. Different approaches are tailored to specific ecosystems, species, and local communities. One common approach is protection, which involves establishing protected areas like national parks and reserves. These spaces help conserve habitats by limiting human activity that could cause harm. Next, we have sustainable management practices, which aim to balance human needs with conservation. For example, sustainable forestry and fisheries ensure that resources are used responsibly and can regenerate over time. Another important concept is restoration, actively rehabilitating degraded ecosystems to bring them back to health. This can involve reforestation, removing invasive species, or restoring wetlands. Education and community involvement also play a critical role, fostering awareness and encouraging local participation in conservation efforts. Throughout our presentation, we've seen that effective conservation requires a combination of these approaches, adapted to the specific challenges and opportunities of each context. By understanding and applying these strategies thoughtfully, we can better protect the biodiversity and ecosystems that are vital for our planet's health. Biological hotspots are these incredible natural environments that are teeming with life, characterized by high levels of biodiversity and a significant number of endemic species, meaning species that are found nowhere else in the world. Out of the 34 recognized hotspots across the globe, India is fortunate to have 2 of these vital areas. First one is the Western Ghats, a mountain range that runs parallel to the western coast, known for its lush forests and diverse plant and animal life. The second is the Eastern Himalayas, which are part of the Greater Himalayan Range, home to a wide variety of unique species adapted to high-altitude environments. Recognizing these hotspots helps us understand the importance of conserving these rich ecosystems, which are vital not only for India, but for the overall health of our planet. This connection underscores the importance of protecting biodiversity hotspots as part of our broader efforts to preserve natural habitats and ensure ecological balance. Now, moving on to the third zone, the transition zone. Here, agricultural activities are permitted, but it's important to note that this area often experiences issues like soil erosion, deforestation, and overgrazing. These challenges can threaten the health of the ecosystem if not carefully managed. Next, let's look at the outside area, known as the buffer zone. This is the zone outside the core area where human activity is allowed, but it's still quite restricted. Public access is typically limited to research purposes to minimize disturbance to the protected environment. Finally, at the very center, we have the core zone. This is the innermost part of the biosphere reserve where human activity is completely prevented. It's a sanctuary dedicated solely to conserving wildlife in their natural habitat. All these zones work together to protect biodiversity, with the core zone serving as the heart of conservation, surrounded by buffer and transition zones that help manage human impact. Let's take a closer look at some of the most important national parks in India. First, we have Ranthambore National Park in Rajasthan, which is renowned for its tigers, leopards, and wild boars. It's a crucial habitat for these species and plays a vital role in their conservation. Next is Sundarbans National Park in West Bengal, famous for its Bengal tigers and the Ridley sea turtle. This park is particularly unique because it combines forest and mangrove ecosystems, supporting a diverse range of wildlife. Moving on, Kaziranga National Park in Assam is home to the one-horned rhinoceros, a species that has become a symbol of conservation success in India. Lastly, Bandipur National Park in Karnataka is well known for its majestic elephants, which roam freely within its protected boundaries. These national parks are essential for protecting our country's rich biodiversity. They are designated protected areas, meaning human activities like grazing and cultivation are strictly prohibited inside them. This helps preserve the natural environment and ensures the survival of these incredible species for future generations. Overall, national parks are a cornerstone of India's efforts to conserve wildlife and maintain ecological balance. Let's take a closer look at some of the important wildlife sanctuaries across India. In Tamil Nadu, we have the Anamalai Wildlife Sanctuary, which is particularly known for protecting tigers. Moving to Kerala, the Periyar Wildlife Sanctuary is famous for safeguarding elephants, a species deeply intertwined with the region's ecology. In Karnataka, the Bhadra Wildlife Sanctuary also focuses on protecting tigers, highlighting the importance of conserving these majestic animals. Additionally, in Karnataka, the Ranganthidhu Bird Sanctuary is a vital habitat for various protected bird species. Wildlife sanctuaries are generally smaller than national parks, which allows for a bit more human activity. This means local communities can collect fruits or graze animals without disrupting the core wildlife habitat. This balance helps in conserving species while supporting local livelihoods. Overall, sanctuaries play a crucial role in protecting specific species and maintaining biodiversity, all while allowing some sustainable human interaction. Let's take a look at some notable zoological parks across India. First, we have the Lion Safari in Talagappa, Shimoga. This park is quite special because it offers visitors a chance to see lions in a more naturalistic setting, which helps in conservation efforts. Next is the Pallicula Zoological Park in Mangalore, known for its diverse collection of animals and its focus on educating the public about biodiversity. Moving on, the Bannerghatta Zoological Park in Bangalore is one of the most popular zoos in the country, with a large safari park and a variety of species that attract many visitors. Lastly, we have the Chamarajendra Zoological Park in Mysore, also called the Mysore Zoo, which is one of the oldest and most well-maintained zoos in India. These zoological parks are not just places for recreation. They play a crucial role in protecting endangered animals. By providing safe environments and breeding programs, these zoos help ensure the survival of species that are at risk of extinction. Overall, zoological gardens serve as vital centers for conservation, education, and research, supporting our broader goal of preserving wildlife for future generations. Let's take a closer look at the conventions on biodiversity. These conventions are international agreements that aim to promote the sustainable use and conservation of biological diversity worldwide. They serve as a framework for countries to work together, sharing knowledge, resources, and responsibilities. One of the most well-known is the Convention on Biological Diversity, or CBD, which emphasizes three main objectives: the conservation of biodiversity, the sustainable use of its components, and fair sharing of benefits arising from genetic resources. These conventions are crucial because biodiversity doesn't recognize borders. What happens in one country can affect ecosystems globally. By adhering to these agreements, countries can coordinate efforts to protect endangered species, restore habitats, and ensure that natural resources are used responsibly. Overall, these conventions highlight the importance of global cooperation in preserving the rich variety of life on Earth, which is essential for maintaining ecological balance, supporting economies, and securing the future of all living beings. Ensuring fair distribution of its benefits is a crucial part of our sustainability efforts. We need to make sure that everyone, everywhere, can share in the advantages that come from preserving biodiversity. Using it sustainably is also key, meaning we should utilize natural resources in a way that they can replenish and be available for future generations. Conserve biodiversity by protecting ecosystems, species, and genetic diversity, which are all vital for a healthy planet. Back in 1992, at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, and again in 2002 at the World Summit on Sustainable Development in Johannesburg, 190 countries came together with a shared commitment. Their goal was to reduce the rate of biodiversity loss worldwide, as well as regionally and locally, by the year 2010. One of the main initiatives that emerged from these efforts is the Convention on Biodiversity. This international treaty aims to promote the sustainable use of biodiversity, conserve its components, and ensure fair sharing of benefits derived from genetic resources. Overall, these commitments highlight the global recognition that protecting biodiversity is not just an environmental issue, but a fundamental part of sustainable development. It's about creating a balance, using our natural resources wisely, while safeguarding the rich diversity of life on Earth for generations to come. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. I really appreciate the opportunity to share these insights with you. Remember, the key points we've discussed highlight the importance of understanding the core concepts and how they connect to the bigger picture. I hope this presentation has helped clarify some of those ideas and inspired you to apply them in your own work. If you have any questions or want to explore these topics further, please don't hesitate to reach out. Once again, thank you for being such an engaged audience. I look forward to seeing how you put these concepts into action.